Hi guys, welcome back. We've got another interview for you today, and we have with me today the lovely Joanna Devoe.
Hello!
I'm assuming everybody knows who Joanna is, but just in case, do you want to introduce yourself, Joanna, just in case?
They don't know who I am.
They
a small percentage of the witchy community knows who I am. I'm the host of the Hippy Witch podcast primarily. I think that's how most people know me now. I am the very, very proud mother of a grown man, it's very hard to say, who is living with autism, and that's such an important part of who I am that I have to put that out there too. I'm not just the host of Hippy Witch. I have this other super cool part of my life that I love to share.
Okay. So everybody now disagree in the comments down below saying you all know who Joanna is. So today we were talking about what we wanted to talk about, and we have this topic which we're going to unpick for you guys. So before anybody comes on and is like, the terms are no good, we're going to unpack it. We're going to unpack it and look at it, right? So we're looking at the idea of what it means to be a light in the world. And this is Joanna's words. I'm stealing them right now. This is me stealing Joanna's words from her email. How shadow work is the real work of the Lightworker, and how we can use our own personal light, platform, voice, hope to amplify that of others, especially doing the important work to help heal the collective right now. So these are the broad strokes of the topic. So we're talking about healing and what it means to be a light worker, and is the term light worker okay, or is it massively problematic? What does it mean? All these things, all these hand movements, and there you go.
Happy full moon. I don't know when this is going up, but it is a full moon right now while we're talking. About to be any minute now.
that might be why I'm extra Fruit Loops tonight. I'm telling you, like this full moon, full moon eclipse.
But talk about light, like that. I think it's so interesting to talk about this during a full moon. It's a period of illumination. When I'm working with a full moon as a witch, I'm typically opening myself up to see. I'm allowing the light to illuminate for me what's in my own shadows. And I was just telling you earlier, and I will repeat it here. I used to hate the word light worker. It is still not my favorite word, but I'm also a word nerd and I like to play devil's advocate. And I kind of unpacked that for myself. Like, why does the word light worker bug me so much when people identify as a light worker? And it was because a large portion of those people, or at least that was my perception, had a certain attitude that was dismissive of other people. And it definitely reeked of spiritual bypass, which I know is like a hot topic right now and has been for some time. That's why it bugged me. That's why it bothered me. But it also bothered me because I'm a person who has long been focused on being a light in the world. So I felt like some of that shit was getting on me and I didn't like it. And it was like tagging my ego. And so I started thinking about what it means to me if I were to use the term light worker, which I don't, but to relate to that idea as a concept and the word light worker, I started thinking, well, it's about shadow work, really, because what are we doing when we do shadow work? We shine light in our shadows and we illuminate what is there so we can see it, so we can feel to heal. And I started thinking of it in those terms, and light in general, and the full moon and the sun as being a time of illumination. And I also am going to include in this camera phones because I think, whoa, like this is the light of the world right now. It's camera phones showing us what Black people, for people watching this in the future, we are now like very much as a globe focused on Black Lives Matter. And what these camera phones are showing us, they're shining a light into the shadows of racism, this huge cultural shadow. It's more than a cultural shadow. It's a global shadow, really. And we are finally seeing what Black people have been trying to tell us all along. Some of us have been seeing this for a while. Like, this is one of the reasons I love Twitter, is because it's been illuminating experience for me to see like, holy shit, like this is happening, you know. And it's not that I didn't hear it before, but seeing it is different. And so that's why it's hard not to start giving speeches, because I'm pretty fired up and really fascinated about the potential for change that is happening right now. And it's coming from people, like the people. It's not coming from the top down, and it's really, really an amazing time.
Seeing as you hit on cell phones, I do just want to mention that as you said, we're right in, it's difficult to say. I was going to say the beginning motions of the revolutionary energies, which are all around Black Lives Matter right now. And I had shared earlier, because I found this really sad, that Darnella Fraser, who is the 17-year-old girl who recorded what happened to George Floyd, is now in therapy and is getting an awful lot of hate for not doing more. And when I saw this, I was like, my heart broke. Like, I saw this first thing this morning, the message that was going around about it, and I was like, except for she used her cell phone, and you can hear her shouting at them as well on the video. I will just point that out. She used her cell phone and, like you said, shone a light on a situation so it couldn't be silenced, it couldn't be hidden, it couldn't be played away like it was nothing, it couldn't be lied about. She opened the floodgates in a lot of ways, and she is getting an awful lot of hate right now saying she could have done more. And so I just wanted to bring some attention.
What could she have done?
I don't know. I mean, when people say these sorts of broad, dismissive statements, I don't think they actually are thinking through what she should have done.
Would she have been put in harm's way? Like, does she have superpowers we don't know about, where she can like open a can of whoop ass on the police, on like 4 giant policemen? I don't know, but she probably was pretty scared, and she stood there and she illuminated, like you said, the tragic, horrific image that none of us are going to be able to get out of our heads now. It was the catalyst for this whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in a lot of ways, she then became almost like, if we're taking that view of what a light worker is, she almost became the light worker of this movement, and not the movement overarchingly, obviously, which has been going on for far longer than this, but the movement which has shifted into gear and, fingers crossed, is going to be changing the world as a result of it right now. So just to put my perspective on the idea of Lightworker and Shadowworker, although it's really interesting because a lot of people then go Lightworker, Darkworker, don't they? And that's where the stigma and the underlying argument about, well, these are racist, have racist implications come from. But it's interesting because I would have gone Lightworker, Shadowworker as well. I'm much more comfortable in like the shadow side of things. I work with shadow work a lot. I talk about shadow work a lot. I unpick it a lot. But it is something that I believe is that you can't have one without the other. You can't have light without shadow. They exist like this. They don't exist as 2 separate sides of the coin even. They are interplaying energy wise all the time. There isn't just like well, I'm having a moment where I'm all light, or I'm having a moment where I'm all shadow. It all interplays. We're all complicated basically, and it all meshes within us. I'm like you, I always found the word light work a bit because there is that kind of not with everybody obviously, and let's try not to be too stereotypical, but there is a tendency that if you take on the mantle of light worker, stereotypically it becomes to dismiss or to disregard anything that is more difficult, anything that is shadow. It's like, no, it's all love and light in the world, and that's fine. And that can become problematic because there's no balance within that. So it is interesting to hear you talk about it from a perspective of, no, I want to take it back to what it's almost nature meaning, what it naturally means within nature, like the moon shining, or allowing growth in the light, because that is something we need to absorb into our skin, into our bodies. It's interesting, into our skin. and all the different ways that implicates. There's something in there. My tongue just tripped over something, and now I'm gonna need to think about it and unpack it. So the way in which we absorb, right? So we're absorbing nutrients, we're absorbing that into us in order to function. And then something as vital as skin, which is one of those, you know, is it the longest organism in the body? Is that right?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm fairly certain I'm right. I might be wrong. Someone will tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain, like, if you lay out your skin, it's like a ridiculous length, and it's the biggest organism in the body that way. Then it's so interesting then, and then how that goes from a biological thing that we all share, and then becomes this very weird, like this very weird value judgment that has over time and history created division and hatred, and we need to basically get back to this idea of it just being almost nourishing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this is gonna really get dicey. Mm-hmm. Let me first say, I am a white person. I do not ever speak for the Black experience because I don't understand it. I'm just learning about it right now. My mantra for this full moon in particular is I am willing to learn, I am willing to change, I am willing to see. But using the metaphor of skin, I think about like how we all have different roles in the world. We all have a different purpose. And I think about Blackness is more than skin deep. It's about cultural abuse. It's about spiritual abuse. The color of their skin is both a symbol and a reality, because Black people, Black skin actually can absorb a lot more sun. They can stay out in the sun a lot longer than us. Like, we get burned by it. And I think there's some interesting, when you're thinking about like illumination and revealing what's in our hearts, I think just for me, what I think that culture represents, and I could be wrong again, is a sort of freedom of spirit. Like when you go back to their indigenous cultures, you're looking at people that were very, very connected to the earth and the land and their sexuality and their freedom and music and rhythm. And then, you know, white colonialism comes in and is like, yes, not just, I mean, crushes it, like tries to just snuff it out completely. And there's a spirit in them being like, no, you know, and you can see it in the food that emerged from those cultures, like cultures of people that were enslaved and taken away from their home and brought here to do. It's absurd for me to even contemplate. I don't want to get too deep into that, but that spirit survived somehow through all that abuse, and it's a beautiful thing. And so, like, to me, like, Blackness represents like a whole spectrum of experience and depth of experience, and you said skin and I just went off on a thing, but it's really fascinating. Another thing to think about, to me, kind of backtracking, is Lightworker, as a lot of people are just kind of over that term. I think it's dismissive, yes, but I think also there's some sort of condescension built in, like, I'm here to change the world. I know something you don't know. I'm here to, you know, like, forgive you. And you know, there's just something condescending about it, which I guess dismissive and condescending go hand in hand, but it just says this message that I'm here to change the world before you take a moment to pause and shine some light into your own shadows. And you know what I mean? Like, it's outwardly directed instead of inwardly directed. And I don't think some words are very, very charged. But to me, like light and dark are useful terms in witchcraft in particular. And so I'm thinking more of like literal light, like the sun, and literal dark, like the night. And what is the value in each of those?
And it's worth saying, when you're taking them as literal natural concepts, they are not positive or negative, because light can be beautiful. It can also burn you, like we've already mentioned. Like, you have too much light, everything gets barren, everything gets starched, everything loses its nourishment. And the night can be scary because you can't see where you're going. That's why most humans are, you know, afraid of the dark, because there are things that would eat you in it originally. Or it can be beautiful. It can be womb space. It can be the night sky. It can be deeply relaxing. I mean, I absolutely adore natural spaces in the dark. I kind of tend to gravitate that way, generally speaking. And I guess I would fall more into the shadow worker camp if you had to define them. But like I said, I don't think that they're as separate as often is made to be the case.
Yes, I think, you know, like nature too blooms at night. We have, and why does nature bloom at night? Why doesn't nature just like, you know, like retract? It doesn't. It blooms. It opens up at night. There are night blooming flowers. We have some of the most amazing creatures on the planet are nocturnal, and a lot of them have the job of pollinating these flowers. Like, nature doesn't stop because it's dark. Nature doesn't apologize. Nature doesn't shrink back. Nature blooms. Nature opens up in the night. And when I think about, I think maybe it's human nature to divide ourselves into categories and of us and them. And I've really just gotten so over and impatient with the way that this has been amplified politically, that it has created a lens that I'm looking through and seeing all the different ways this shows up. And it shows up in the spiritual community, where there's a lot of like policing of each other's practices. And those are the light workers and those are the shadow workers, and these people suck and these people can fuck off. And I'm just like, guys, literally, like, it's happening. There are people that benefit from us being divided. And right now, specifically related to Black Lives Matter, we need to employ everybody in the mission to create the desired change.
It's interesting in a reaction to this, because on the whole, there seems to have been, in the magical community, in the spiritual community, there seems to have been more coming together for this than I have seen in a while. Now, there definitely is some division still. There are still people shouting at each other over the fence like it helps. But in terms of spiritual, you know, what people want to do, people wanting to help, people want to send out healing, people want to send out protection. I've actually seen a lot of like people coming together, which I think is one of the big hopes for the movement, that people will all come together and people will stop being so divided, because the whole us versus them drives me insane. It has driven me insane for a very long time, both in humanity and in our community, because I don't think that it helps. And every time that the conversation about what a real witch is, or you can't be a Christian witch, or you can't be a this, and I'm just sat there like, no. Bad community, bad. Like it comes round like fairly frequently inside that people want to discuss these things. And I think it is just because, particularly in America, which is where Joanna is, but also in the UK, although I think in America you get taught this on such a scale that it really is an us versus them dynamic. So in American politics, like, you can't agree with someone without disagreeing with someone else in particular. So if you agree with this, you're against that. And that, I've noticed, is very entrenched in American politics. It is here too, but I think the English are a bit more shady about it. Like, you tend to get called out for it. Like, what are you talking about? Why does that mean, you know, that I'm against something else? That's nonsense. And you see it to such ridiculous degrees. You have people like, well, if you like cats, you don't like dogs. Well, if you like tea, you don't like coffee. And you're like, what is happening? Why can't we appreciate all the things? Like, is that not the healthier, healing way to go? And I think the energy of where the world is in the moment is shining a massive spotlight on how problematic this us versus them is, and that it basically leads to systematic racism in the case of what we're looking at, because that is almost a social ill, a social evil, which is allowing far worse things to thrive underneath. Because as long as we're treating other people like the other, like they're not human just as much as we are, that allows that, you know, the racism, but other things in the world too, your sexism, your homophobia, all of that, to like under the surface of that crust, which is like us versus them, is the crust which is hiding all this stuff underneath. And that's been shone a great big light on, and it's not okay. And the ways that it's really, what's the right word, it deceptively sneaks into our lives as well. It's not always overt. It's sometimes the weirdest little places, and you have to become aware of it. And this is one of the ways that I'm educating myself, to be aware of looking at my behaviors and trying to educate myself, and looking for those little things that sort of sneak in along the road until you wake up one day and you're like, what is that? Where did that come from? And that's shadow work.
Yeah.
Do you think healing the us versus them might be a good way of starting to try and make that change in the world?
Did you say healing us versus them?
Healing that mentality, trying to unpick and break down that in the world.
I don't know.
Possible?
I don't know. I don't know what the answers are. I am exploring, I'm listening, I'm trying my best to catch up and learn. And most of what I'm doing right now is looking at my own life. And I can hear, I'm a big like pop witch. I love pop culture. I love to incorporate it into my magic, into my life. I'm a movie nut. I'm a book nerd. I can't live without my music. These things are very, very important to me. And I started looking at that and going like, oh my God, or having people on my podcast. This is a thing that I've been thinking about, Joey. I'm like looking at my book collection and being like, how many Black authors are there? I had to fucking dig. I had to dig. There's Tommy Adeyemi, there's Ilyana Van Zandt, there's Eartha Kitt, there's Maya Angelou, the big obvious like authors that you might know, but like the tiniest little percentage. Then I look at my music and movies, and there's a lot more Black representation, but I'm asking myself, why is that? And it's because I turn to those things for entertainment primarily, although I do think entertainment is an amazing tool for getting a message across. But when I read, I'm looking to learn. And why am I only reading primarily white voices? And then I go look at my podcast and I'm like, how many Black people have I had on the show? I can name them. I can name them like a dozen out of all the interviews I've done on YouTube and on the podcast. I had Jericho Brown. He just won the Nobel Prize for poetry. That was pretty exciting. Or Pulitzer Prize. Oh my God. Okay, I'm a dork. Don't listen to me. But my friend Abiola Abrams has come on a few times, and I could just sit here and I could name them. And that's not okay, because if you asked me who the white people are that I've had on the show, I'd be like, I don't know. Go look at the list. I mean, there's like tons. And so why? I use my podcast to shine a light on other people that I think are interesting. Oh my God. Like, so I'm doing things like that and being like, well, that I can change, that I can change. I've signed up for a bunch of newsletters. because my impulse is like, well, I want to join something, but I don't know what. So I'm reading newsletters, I'm donating money, I'm signing petitions, and I'm just like, okay, this is the beginning, and I'm just gonna learn.
I had the exact same thought. So it's interesting because I actually had this exact same thought about 3 to 4 weeks ago, and I was looking at my channel like, there is nothing but a sea of white faces on YouTube, and it's not representative of all people. And I was like, I was saying this on my podcast today for the full moon. I was like, it was never my intention. It's never like something that I set out to do. And I love listening to all different stories from around the world. Like I watch other people on YouTube who are non-white faces. And the only person that I've had, I think, is Benabel, who is Asian. But like from different cultures around the world, no. And I was looking at it going, well, your intention was never this, but this is what we have. And this is not okay. So we need to double down on reaching out to people. And I've started that process myself, because that is, like you said, that's something I can do. That's something that I can hold myself accountable for, that I haven't reached out to as many people who are non-white about their spiritual practices and had wanted to chat about them on the channel. And I absolutely 100% do want to talk to people. And as I said in my other video, like, I've opened the platform up as well for anybody who wants to come on and just talk. And if they want to just talk and they keep me be silent for 30 minutes or whatever, I'm fine with that too. But I would like to talk to more people, because spirituality is interesting anyway. I find it interesting to listen to people all around the world and what influences them and what impacts on them, and how they've learned and how they've grown their spiritual practice. And all of that stuff is good. It's juicy, interesting, mind knowledge to listen to. And you're right about the things we read. Now, I don't have a lot of books anymore because I've had to like up sticks and move a few times, and I couldn't take my books with me. But I know that Instagram has been invaluable recently since everything started shifting. People are really sharing like great authors to read, and great websites to visit, and artists, and really drawing attention to people. And I'm like, good, that's fabulous, because then you can make a list, we can go through it, we can learn, we can read, we can watch videos. I mean, I watch videos. That's the bit that I'm ahead on, I think, because I do go around watching everybody. Like, I've been like watching Mint Fairy, like all of her videos lately, and I'm like, oh, this is great. So those are definitely some things that we can do, and holding ourselves accountable is really important.
Yeah, those lists are being compiled on Twitter, and they're so awesome. I just saw one yesterday for neuroscientists, like, shout yourself out if you're a Black neuroscientist. So it's like, these are actionable things. These are people you can follow. These are books you can read. And my personal lane, like what I am passionate about, what I love, what I've built my brand on, is creating the kick-ass life of your dreams, right? Like, I like to show people succeeding. I personally use magic on my pursuit of this, so that's why I talk about magic. But I just love to see somebody winning, and somebody succeeding, and somebody solving problems, and somebody like living their best life. And so things that I focus on more in terms of amplifying Black voices. This week I've been doing it like every day over on Twitter, is I'm looking for people I want to celebrate, talented people that are amazing, in addition to political messages. But when I'm sharing political messages, I'm sharing actionable things, or just really powerful moments where people came together, or or a call to change, sign this petition, that kind of stuff, and avoiding really angry messages. But I'm not doing that because I think the angry messages are bad. I think we each have our lane, we each have our gifts, we each have our talents. And so I'm all about the peaceful protesting, but I had to look at, is there value in the people that are rioting? and starting fires and doing all of this too. And I think yes, because that's where the news cameras go, which is unfortunate because most people are peacefully protesting, and that's just not as exciting to put on TV. It's just not, it's not that fun compared to like, whoa, look at them burning down shit. And I mean, my original stance on this was like, we need to embody excellence. We need everybody that is protesting needs to embody excellence and to teach other people how we want to be treated, and we do that by treating ourselves in a respectful manner. But then I started thinking about, no, there has to be those fire starters, there has to be those angry people. They're the ones that keep this, like, they're the fire starters and the fire holders, and that's a form of light too. They're keeping the fire burning, they're keeping the story going, they're expressing their outrage that I feel, but they express it in a really external, outward way, and that's their lane. I have a friend on Twitter. Do you know Bera Para of Serpens Rubrum?
Don't think so.
She's a Mexican satanic witch, which is just like triggering, like what, you know, like just that she's a satanic witch. Like, I think there's just power in calling yourself that, but also like she walks that talk, and she's a person who really like shows up with, I won't call her a provocateur because I don't know that she would identify that way, but for me, she shows up in a way that is very provocative. But what's cool about her is she is respectful, and we can have conversations together about, like, just yesterday we had a huge conversation about, like, she cannot stand like light and love, that just the light and love, like when you put them together like that is an irritant to her and it pisses her off. And what did I have to do? I had to play devil's advocate, like hop over and like comment, but like kind of what we're talking about today, like, you know, but light and love, I'm not gonna throw those out. Like, that's important to me, and here's why. And she's like, no, here's why this, and we went back. Heard her saying is that language is important, and all the things that we talked about, why light workers bug us, like people that use that as an identity. That's her stance basically. But I listened, and I was trying to, like, I think there's a difference between trying to win an argument and just having a really productive conversation where you're trying to understand each other. And she's awesome for that. And I left that going, we have two different lanes, we have two different audiences, we're here to serve two different groups of people. There may be some crossover, but like both of these communities need to be served because we, like I said, we need to employ everyone. So
I've definitely been thinking.
I get on my soapbox. Sorry, Joey.
No, it's cool. I was thinking about that today, about all the different ways that people serve the community or humanity, or even within massive shifts in social change, just the different roles that everybody fills or comes to the board with, and all the different voices working together to tell this story, to change this story. And I think some of the problems that might actually arise is when that's not being allowed between people, like, oh well, no, this is the way, because they're not allowing for different roles within a situation. You know, there are people who are leading the charge, those fire starters, like you call them. They're people who are drawing attention, people who are making noise, people who are making it so they can't be ignored. And something that somebody shared that I thought was very interesting was people are talking about there have been peaceful protests and they've been ignored, and they've been ignored, and they've been ignored. And then you get to the point where it combusts, and then we have aggressive, violent rioting. And I, in the beginning, was a little bit unsure about the rioting, because for a couple of reasons. I was like, well, I'm worried that people are going to get badly hurt, and it's the community that's going to get badly hurt, because it's unlikely to be the oppressors that are going to get badly hurt by this. And I was a little bit worried about people and people in the community who are being hurt by this too. I know there has been talk about small business owners who have lost everything because of the rioting. Now, I was thinking about it like from a UK perspective, it's likely they'd get help from the government, but I didn't know if that would be the case in America, which I was assuming possibly not. So those were some of the thoughts that I was having. But I, like you, looked into it, was reading around it, and I got to the point where I was like, it's the voices of people who have been ignored repeatedly, like, and who have been not only criticized but even oppressed for the peaceful protesting, because you know the taking of one knee has been all over the media as this terrible thing, instead of it just being what it is, which is a peaceful protest against brutality. And so this is kind of like the accumulation of being ignored for so long to get to the point where we won't be ignored. And maybe that's part of that spirit you were talking about, that refusal to stop, that refusal to be oppressed. And if all of the voices work together in the different roles in which we are meant to fulfill, then we can find a way of making sure that this keeps burning, and not in a burning everything down way, but it keeps burning in the hearts of people, keep pushing for change, lasting change, rather than it just being the light being shone on it right now.
Yes, yes. That's what I mean about policing too, because policing each other. Because I could show up and be like, you guys are doing this wrong. It needs to be peaceful. A violent protest, like if you push against something, it's going to push back. And like, this isn't getting us anywhere. And then those people can be like, fuck you. We're sick of taking, and that is, telling people how to serve the mission is like, just, it's great to, particularly if you're Black. Like, I'm listening. Like, I want to hear what you say. I want to do things the right way. That's why I didn't post a Black, on the day that we were having a blackout, a lot of people were posting Black, just blacking out their Instagram accounts. Well, then very early in the day, it came out that like, wait a minute, this isn't helping. This is actually hurting the situation. Yeah. What I saw was a lot of people then go, oh shit, okay, we didn't know. And then they pivoted, and then they started amplifying Black voices, which was what really we were meant to do that day. You have to give people a chance to learn and catch up. And so I think there's a difference between policing other people's behavior and then just simply educating them and being like, wait a minute, this is actually not helping, this is hurting. So that's kind of what I meant when I was talking about like policing each other's behavior and telling each other how to show up. I also see people that are making complete assholes out of themselves. Like this morning, this is my judgment. My ego is saying this, just for the record. There was this girl, 2 girls dressed to the nines. Like they looked like they were about to go to work at Vogue. And they were completely dressed up. And one girl was like, doing this with her hair, and she had a Black Lives Matter sign and was like trying to like figure out a way to take a picture for her Instagram account with the protesters behind her, like in this outfit, like holding this sign, and people were like, this is disgusting. I felt that too. I was like, this is fucking disgusting, and then somebody's like doxing her, like, here's her Instagram account. And I think she had like 2 million followers. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was 200,000. I feel like it was 2 million. It was a lot of people. And apparently she took her account down. So to me, I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. Whether that girl realizes what she did was shameful and gross and exploitive or not, it doesn't matter, because it showed up on the world stage, and a lot of people learned from that. A lot of white people are like, oh yeah, that's actually not cool. And we're learning why that's not cool. So I think, we're all tools. Yeah.
That's a line we have to be so careful about, though. We have to be so careful that it's not about us, because that's what I said on my video. Yes. It's not about us. We want to be here, we want to help, but it's not about us. And that's why I agree with you. It's looking to be educated where we need to be educated, being open to that education, and not to take it as a personal affront, because I think some people get very offended by the idea that they need to learn something in these areas. And I mean, I've been recommended some books on white frailty and stuff today, and my reaction was, thank you, and I will take it. I will go and have a look, and I will educate myself, because I think it's too easy to, even in times such as this, be like, well, I know how to educate myself. Like, it's really easy to get into that, like, are you criticizing me? Are you criticizing my intelligence? Like, it's so easy to fall into that shadow. And in times such as these, it becomes all the more important to not, like, to not fall into that, because somebody knows more about you in these areas that somehow you are lacking. It's like, well, just educate yourself. Just read the material that you're being offered. Show up.
Yeah. It happened on my own podcast. I had Abiola on, who I love. She's such a queen. But I was talking about, I mean, very like walking on eggshells, because when I have someone that is Black on the show, and this is another piece of evidence against where my head's at as a white person, I want to ask them about being a Black person. I don't do that when white people come on the show. I'm not like, so tell me, what's the white experience like? What's it like being a white witch, or but when a Black person comes on, I want to ask them about it. I'm trying to learn. I'm curious, but I don't even know if that's okay. I don't know how to ask what I want to know without being an asshole. So I just kind of try and accept I'm definitely going to say something stupid. I'm going to make an ass out of myself. And then I do my best to be like walking around gently, because I want to learn. Abiola is the best for that. I was saying something to her about like Black women's strength, and where do you think that comes from? And we admire that, like, what do you think about that? Like, white people look up to that, and we're intimidated by it. And she was like, you know what? And she just schooled me on my own podcast. And I let her, because I want to learn. But she was like, this is not a helpful stereotype. This stereotype has been oppressive to Black women, because Black women are expected to be strong. Black women are expected to clean up everybody else's messes. And we get to be soft too. We get to have our pain. We get to be sad. We get to be tired. And this is not a helpful stereotype for us. And I was like, fuck, you're right. And sometimes those conversations happen publicly, and I think that's a service. I'm happy to be the clown sometimes. I'm always the clown. Like, I just am. I can't help it, even if I tried to be cool. So I just sort of lean into that, like, okay, here we go again, but that's my lane. Somebody else's lane might be different, but at the very least, just listen before you react, and listen with your heart. Like, really, like, take something in before you react.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're probably coming towards the end. Is there anything you wanted to cover before we round up?
I don't know. Was this helpful? Like, who has questions? I know this isn't live, but I'm just curious to know what people think. I'll definitely pop in and read the comments, because I want to see what's going on. Yeah, I don't know. I think we just are having an amazing moment right now. It's a real opportunity, and I think the best thing to do is not look away. Just don't look away. Let yourself be awkward. Let yourself learn. Let yourself change, and take your voice. Take whatever you feel is your natural genius and use it in the best way you know how.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think it's a time for being silent right now either. I mean, there's definitely periods of being silent when you're listening to other people to learn. So that's very important. But at the same time, I feel like this is not a time to, well, it's not a time to spiritually bypass. Let's put it that way. It's a really dangerous time to spiritual, if there's ever a good time to spiritual bypass. There's not. It's bad. Pack it in. But like right now, all voices are needed behind this cause, not because we want to put ourselves in front of it, not because we want to make it about us, but because we want to stand and say, this is happening, and we'll bear witness, and we will stand beside you guys, and we'll do whatever we can. We'll educate ourselves. We will make room on our platforms for you to come and chat and say what you need to say, so it's heard as much as we can. And we will share, and we will donate, and we will do everything we can think of doing. And honestly, Instagram is my favorite for it right now, because it is such Joanna's on Twitter much more than I am.
I love the Twitter. I'm the only one.
Yeah, I'm loving Instagram, because I can follow all of the information, and I can get my hands on it really easily, and that's been great for me. So there are resources out there, guys, to educate yourself, and wherever you are in the world right now, please be safe. Take care. There, people are going to protest, which is amazing. Just take care of yourself, guys. There are plenty of guidelines out there that can tell you ways of keeping yourself safe far better than me. So I know they exist. I've been reading them on Instagram.
And use the comment section here. Like, if you are a Black person who has a business or a talent or a mission that you want to share, like, do it here. If you're a person of any caucasity, any flavor, any color, like, and you have, right now we're amplifying Black voices. There are many voices that need to be amplified, but this is the moment for that. And I just want to say too, like, I was saying people of color because I was trying to be inclusive, and then I switched my language to saying Black. I didn't know if that was okay. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. I think here in America, we've gone through a whole journey with that. Like, we used to say Negro, colored, and evolved in my day to African American. And then, like, I was like, are we allowed to say Black? Are we supposed to say Black? Just listen. People will tell you how they want to be referred to. And so that is why I keep saying Black this and Black that and Black Lives Matter.
Okay. So thank you.
Sorry, am I yelling at you, Joey? I'm so sorry. You have such a calm energy, and I'm like,
That's okay. We'll balance out somewhere here in the middle. Thank you so much for coming in, Joan.
Thank you so much.
So thank you guys for coming and listening to us talk today as well. Many blessings, guys. Any questions, pop them down below. All of Joanna's information will of course be below the video, and like she said, anybody who wants to share their information, down below. Etsy shops, places of art, channels, anything you like, down below. And that's it for today. I'll catch you guys soon. Many blessings.